So, welcome everyone. So, we'll just kind of get cozy if we have a few more kind of mingle in. So, welcome to Cooking with Heart for Diabetes Class 2. So, today we're going to uh, plunge into snacks and spacey meals. And as you can see, I have those that are here in person can see we have Tanya over here assembling a really delicious snack for all of us to try. So, but it might as well just have Tanya kind of come on over here in kind of the hot seat and introduce yourself. She is helping me out.
Well, I am Tanya. I actually work in a couple of different departments here throughout our college cardiology unit. I do mornings in CTU downstairs. So if anybody's had an incident where they're down there, you'll see me at the desk. And then I come up here to cardiac rehab, pulmonary rehab in the afternoon. And then I help out with the heart-to-heart events. And now I get to come here with the cooking classes as well. So I get to kind of see all these fine people.
Yes, yes. Well, we're so glad to have you here, Tanya, helping me out. So I'm gonna try to like keep an eye on a virtual a little closer this way that I know I have my backup here. So, and you guys here. So awesome. Okay, well, big thank you first of all to Genesis for their support for these classes and the Trinity Foundation and the Quad City Diabetes Association. So we're thrilled to have these offered throughout the community. Okay, so I'd love to hear from you guys. Your learnings for the last week. There was a podcast I was listening to, and the guest on there, I loved what he said. He said, I wish that in the dictionary there wasn't even the word failing. He said there is no such thing, truthfully, as failings. He said there's just learnings, there's just experiments, testing. And he said, whenever something doesn't go the way I expect, I just kind of go, I'm going to be curious here. And let me see what I do differently if I go at it again sometime. So that's what the kind of, mindset I really want you to have with these things. So many times there's more gifts and things going a little off course and not expected than actually going as you plan. So, please share anything that you observed, learned, tried out, that kind of thing. Anybody?
Cauliflower salad.
You did? Okay. And so tell me, what is it something that you'd make again?
Yeah, I would. I didn't know that maple syrup was better than sugar, so that.
A little. It's still going to raise your blood sugar, but I do like it to use it. I think the flavor's better. It's a little less processed. So great. So wonderful. Yes.
I also made the cauliflower salad.
You made the cauliflower salad. Okay. And did others like it?
Folks with us too.
So, okay.
We took it to our Easter celebration.
Oh,
Yeah, got a lot of compliments.
awesome. Wonderful. Yes,
Too.
you made it too.
And kind of cauliflower was.
Yes, you were amazed last week when I cut it.
I'm still amazed. I'm telling everybody, you don't know how to cut the cauliflower.
That's right. You tell them. That's right. You got it down. So
Yeah.
I actually got a text from a friend too that she said, please send me the cauliflower recipe because she served it on Easter. So it's amazing how simple it is, easy to make. Like, did it take anybody, like the first time it's going to take a little longer, anybody over 30 minutes to make? No. So, and you can get it down to 15 once you've made it a couple times. So it's just really great. So, and something that another participant shared, she takes pictures of the recipes and puts them in an album in her phone, so that she always has the recipes, and if she's at the grocery store and that kind of thing, she just can really whip it out. So a tip there. So, any other learnings?
I tried eating.
Go ahead.
This is Diane, and I tried eating every 4 to 6 hours and not in between. And I was able to do it a couple days. I found out that if I added protein, a little more protein than usual, I was more apt to be able to follow that.
Oh, what a great learning. Oh, Diane, thank you for sharing. So any other like things that come to mind? You energy wise, kind of hunger? Were you hungry by 4 hours? Were you finding that your energy was a little different stability or
Well, I didn't know if it was in my head or if it was for real, but I did feel like the second day that I tried it, I thought I had more energy. Um, and yeah, but then the third day, life got in the way and I wasn't able to do it. So,
well,
that's
oh my goodness, kudos to you, Diane, for trying that out. So yes, and I love how you made it into like this test pilot. So that is golden because you don't have, sometimes it gets like this big weight of like I should do this, I need to be doing. Just try it out, test pilot it, see if it works for you because some things aren't going to, and some things are. So wonderful, thank you for sharing. So others. I'm going to mute this real quick. Just there we go. It sounds like we're okay here. So,
One thing,
yeah, Ernie.
like the top of your head is that on, yeah, the time.
Okay. Thank you. I can adjust that really easily. Thank you. There we go. We got the whole curl there. Yeah, there we go. Yes, you gotta get some heels on. So, yes. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. So I love hearing it. The others love hearing the things. So we're all here on the journey to learn together. Okay, so next week we're going to go into why we're programmed to overeat and what we can do about it. And so I'm going to ask that you have like a little something to eat as we go through an eating exercise together. I'll provide for those that are here, but those at home, you just need like 5 bites maybe of something. And just like Diane said, I recommend that you have a little protein with it and maybe some other, we'll talk about that today. So a little bit more. So we're going to do, for dishes, we're going to do triple powered smoky tortillas. So this is a great dish because it's really like 3 dishes in one because I always make sure I make extra of it because I can use it throughout the week. And it's one of my favorite ways to eat beans. So if you're having trouble with beans, this is a simple, easy way. So mouth-watering microwave frittata. So this is a great way to get some veggies and protein in the morning on the go. So we'll make that next week. Okay, so I want to, those at home, I forgot to mention, can you go and get a product from your kitchen? Just grab something with a label on it, not an apple, but something with a label on it. So we are going to go through label reading because that's a really important skill to do. Let me see. Nope. Okay. So everybody's got a product here. So, and I know some of the products are maybe not, they have labels. So we're going to go through and you're going to learn how to do the label. I'm going to grab here. And also I apologize, I didn't get to do the aquafaba. I will do that next week. I was meaning to do it. I have the ingredients here. I just didn't get a chance, but the aquafaba is making whipped cream, vegetarian essentially, but from healthier, kind of a healthier homemade, minimally processed way. So I will report back to you next week. Okay, everybody have a product. Awesome, wonderful. Okay, so the front of the label we ignore. That is a standstill commercial, and a lot of money is poured into that because they want you to get you to put it in your cart. So just ignore that. Go to the back to the nutrition facts and ingredients label, and there's 5 things that I look at. So I don't look at everything on there. So first thing I look at is the serving size. So looking at the serving size, I just want you to say, oh, that's approximately what I'm going to eat. Or, you know what, I'm going to eat more than this or less. They're better than they used to be. So this one's a 1/2 cup. So that's probably close to for beans. So, but yeah, because you're going to need to then adjust the other portions of the nutrition facts that we look at. So just, oh, that's what I'm going to eat. No, that's not. So Okay, so next I go to saturated fat. I don't go to calories. I don't go to fat. I go to saturated fat. Saturated fat is what we know clearly is not good for the arteries. So we want to keep saturated fat. Watch it. It's not none. So I don't want anybody to get carried away. We know your body is okay with some, but so many products that we're eating, especially the ultra processed, have a lot of saturated fat. So 10 grams or less is what we're aiming for. 10 grams or less. Okay. So just think 10 fingers, 10 toes. I don't have you memorize too many numbers, but this one is important. 10 fingers, 10 toes. So just think of that saturated fat. So, okay. Next I look at sodium. So sodium, salt, and that is related to blood pressure, and about 47% of Americans have high blood pressure. So it's something we really need to get better at. So sodium, if you have high blood pressure or are on high blood pressure meds, even if you're well controlled, we really want you to keep about 1,500 milligrams. I know that's a weird number, 1,500 milligrams for all your meals, all your snacks, all your beverages. And Michelle, before we got here, we were having a conversation about a new beverage she's drinking, and she was very conscientious of looking up the sodium, which was great. Just being conscious of that. So 1,500 milligrams. Then if you do not have high blood pressure, not on high blood pressure meds, then we say 2,300 milligrams. I know a weird number, 2,300, okay, milligrams of sodium. So, and some people will say, well, I don't have any at the table, so I'm probably fine. Most of us are around 5,000 milligrams, and about 2/3 of that is in processed products, and 1/3 is at the table and cooking. So you still need to really watch the products. Okay. It's great if you found some substitutes that we're talking about here in your cookings at home and your table, but probably if you're kind of close to the typical American and eating some packaged products, you probably need to watch. And if you start reading labels, you're going to be in sodium shock. Really. So there's a lot of sodium in things. Then the next thing I look at is I usually go to the ingredients list, but a lot of people like to look at the sugar. Okay. And I get that. So let me give you some guidelines for the sugar. So the sugar is usually broken down to total sugars and then added sugar. And that's because you do find things like sugar in milk that's natural. Lactose is the sugar in there. It doesn't taste sweet, but it does have lactose in there, which is a sugar actually. So we need to discern between those things. So that's why the added sugar, that's things that are added to the product. So we want the added sugar to be no more than 10 grams of product. Now, I don't want you to have sugar in every product, added sugar, but just when you're at the 10 gram mark, that tells me you have 2.5 teaspoons equivalent of sugar in that product per serving. That's a good bit of sugar. So you want to know that that's a big time sweetener for whatever. Now, we recommend for added sugar females, rough guideline is no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar a day. Now let me give you some math. There's 4 grams in every teaspoon. So that is going to be 4 times 6, 24 grams total for the whole day for females of added sugar. I'm telling you, that's going to go quick. I mean, I added it on my oatmeal, so that's a whole bunch there. So it's just be aware. We really need to back down on the sugar. For males, it's 9 teaspoons of sugar a day. So 9 times 4, 36. So when you're reading added sugar, we're not talking about natural sugar. Added sugar is those numbers. So those are recommended by the American Heart Association, and that usually gets you less than 10%. So that's the sugar. I usually go to the ingredients list. So go to the ingredients list on your product, and they're listed by weight. So not volume, so not measuring like we do with the recipes here. Instead, weight like they do in Europe for their recipes. Weight. So the first ingredient weighs the most. So sometimes you'll have water there. So they're listed. So I look for a name for sugar in the first 3 to 5 ingredients. A name for sugar, there's 61 names for sugar on labels, okay? So it's not going to probably be just the word sugar. it's going to be something ending in OSE is often. That's one clue, like dextrose, maltose, glucose, fructose. If it sounds like sugar, it is. And agave and maple syrup and honey, those are all going to spike your blood sugar the same as regular sugar. Now, there's a difference in processing that I will choose one over the other, but as far as blood sugar goes, they're the same. So, fruit juice concentrate, anything like that. Again, sugar. So I want to be aware. If it's in the top 3 to 5 ingredients, think about it. That means it's a lot of the weight of the product. Okay, so that's a clue that that's a lot of sugar. Okay, then I also look for whole grain, because this is something we talked about last week, how important whole grains were. So we're looking to add in more whole grains, more fiber. So we want to look for names like in that first 3 to 5 ingredients. Again, so that gives us a clue that it's a good portion because we want whole grains. So that's going to be things like brown rice, rolled oats, oatmeal, buckwheat, amaranth, stone ground polenta. Polenta is a little tricky. It needs to be degerminated, or not degerminated, excuse me, not degerminated. Most of the polenta we have on the grocery stores is degerminated. You have to order usually from Bob's Red Mill to get the whole grain of polenta. White whole wheat flour. I know that's confusing, but it's a type of grain that actually is whole grain. And then whole grain wheat flour, bulgur. So those are all great sources of whole grains. They're intact. So those are some things to look for. So look at your product. That's all I look at. Okay. I do kind of take note if there's a whole long list of ingredients. I don't want to scare people, but the more ingredients, the more likely it's more processed. So also keep in mind that ingredients, when you look at them, the olive oil they're going to use is not EVOO, okay, extra virgin olive oil. They're going to use cheaper olive oil, which is not going to give you the benefit that we talk about in this class, because it's a lot cheaper. They make a lot more money if they use low grade olive oil. So just, the sourcing of ingredients is one of my concerns always when we get packaged products. So, those are some guidelines to look at a product and see if it's thumbs up or thumbs down. So tell me, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down for the product you have. What would you say? Is there any question? We got thumb up, thumb up, thumb up. Now, not all the products that I gave out here are thumbs up, but a lot of them are, because I'm trying to give examples. So any questions on your products?
Xanthan gum and things like that.
Okay, xanthan gum is to emulsify, keep it, so it doesn't separate. So when we make our sauces here, things like the brown sugar are going to settle out. You have to shake it before you use it, but that's going to keep things dispersed throughout. So the guar gum, and that is very common. So, they're going to have to do that. That's what we expect. Even orange juice in a couple minutes, the pulp and stuff is going to separate to the bottom, guys. So if you have fresh squeezed orange juice at a hotel and it's not separating to the bottom, guess what? They added something back in the kitchen. Okay. So maybe they squeezed it recently, but and actually I learned this last week that orange juice cartons in the refrigerator at grocery stores, they're 2 years old. Okay. They sit in vats in Florida and Brazil. And then they ship them out of the vats. And before they ship them, they add some chemicals for flavoring because they've lost their flavor sitting in these vats. So that's your fresh squeezed orange juice in the cartons. Okay. So just, again, this is the sourcing of ingredients and things. And, we expect our orange juice to not be settling to the bottom. So that's something that we've done for manufacturers, that they do that. So but being informed and making choices, it's all about the balance. It's not about every last thing has to be, put together, assembled, and made from scratch. So, okay. So I want to switch over to our PowerPoint because we've got a great topic today. There we go. Okay, all the ins and outs of snacks. So, okay, So I want to go into like what happens in your body a little bit with food there. So here I've got a person that's eating an apple. Okay, now that take off a couple bites and it goes down your esophagus into your stomach, and there's a little churning there and creating of chyme, and then it goes into your intestines. And at this point, your apple becomes, in a sense, what food in your intestines? What is it kind of like at that point? Take a guess. Well, fiber, it have fiber in it, like applesauce, chunky applesauce. So it'll kind of be at that point. So now the applesauce is digested and broken down to its building blocks. It's simple building blocks. So any food is going to be broken down to things like, if it has protein, amino acids. If it has fat, it's going to have fatty acids. And if it has some carb or sugar, it's going to be broken all the way down to the simple building blocks: glucose, galactose, fructose, those kind of things. So now these building blocks are then ready to move into your bloodstream. Okay, they stay in the intestines and they cannot cross into your bloodstream unless they're in these simple building blocks. So now they go into your bloodstream, and now this is where we're concerned about the glucose. So we've got glucose in your bloodstream, and the glucose is what raises your blood sugar. That's what we take the reading of when we take the strips, or your hemoglobin A1C. That's actually over 3 months. It's a little different, but so now we need to move that glucose into the cell before we get a high concentration in the blood. Because if we get a high concentration, a lot of things will happen. It actually becomes thicker, and there's some metabolic kind of ripple effects that happen when we get higher blood sugars. So unfortunately, you can't just like cross glucose into your cells. Your cells need glucose for energy, but you have to unlock it with insulin. And the hormone insulin is the key that unlocks the door to open up and allow glucose into your cells out of the bloodstream, so that your blood sugar is not spiking super high, concerningly high. So your liver or your pancreas makes your insulin. So it's vital that we have the insulin in the bloodstream in the right kind of amount, in that balance for the glucose for the meal that you just ate, to open the doors and let it into the cells so that we don't get too high with the glucose level in the blood. So it's a nice balance when it happens. So let's find out what happens when it isn't in a nice balance. So I'm going to use an illustration, kind of to break it down and make it easier. So let's think of a knife as your insulin. So, and we're going to use that, just use your imagination to follow with me here. But so insulin's a very key character in this. And so it's very important to understand with your insulin knife, how big is the knife, how sharp is the knife, and how much work does the knife have to do? So, okay, so hang with me here, it'll make sense. So how big is your knife? So this has to do with how much insulin you have. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a bigger knife, you have more insulin. When you're born with the most insulin you have regularly, okay? So let's say you're born with like a 12-inch knife, okay? Now, when you're diagnosed with diabetes, you're about at half that. So you're down to a 6-inch knife, okay? And if you've had diabetes for a while, you might be down to a 4-inch or a 2-inch, okay? Now, can you cut food with a 12-inch going down to a 6-inch? Sure, you can cut food still with a 6-inch knife. Can you cut with a paring knife, like a 4-inch? Yeah. Can you cut with a box cutter? Got one here. Can you cut with this? You can cut, but it's going to be a lot of cutting, a lot of work for this, okay? So that's where, we're going to need some help with some medications or possibly insulin. So to keep up with the demand of the glucose from going too high. So the things that can affect it are age. Okay. Just naturally as we age, we're going to gradually have less and less. Our knife is going to get smaller. So, and then, like I said, when you're diagnosed with diabetes, you have less. We just know that. So, if you've had it for a while, or if you have type 1. So those are all things that can affect it. So, okay. So that's how big. So what about how sharp? So how sharp has to do with insulin resistance. How many of you have heard that term, insulin resistance? Yeah. Okay. When you start reading up, you're going to find that term, insulin resistance. And that basically means the insulin you have is not able to do the work as effectively. It's there, but it's just not able to keep up with it's just not doing as much. Okay. So, you might have the same amount of insulin, not any less, but it's just not able to do as much work. It's not as effective in opening the door, clicking onto the cell's receptor and opening the door. So it's kind of like trying to cut up food with a dull knife. So a dull knife is going to be hard no matter the size. Now there's several things that actually affect insulin resistance, and these have a lot of controllable factors for you. Now age is another one. Okay, we do find that there's a gradual resistance that happens as we age. So inactivity, and star that 3 times. Okay, it's a big one. If you want your insulin to work better, one easy way is movement. Medications, some medications. So a lot of your psychiatric meds, steroids, they will affect insulin sensitivity. Stress. Now, I'm sure nobody has stress. No. But stress can actually affect your insulin's effectiveness. Illness. So whenever you're sick, you're going to find your blood sugars are probably going to be a little wild. Pain, whether it's emotional or physical. A diet that is high in animal-based protein and fat. Diet low in fiber. And if you've had a recent weight gain. So all these contribute to insulin resistance. The insulin you have is just not working as well. It's able to do the work it once was able to do. So let's think about some scenarios. If you have a back injury, would that affect a person's insulin resistance? Oh yeah. You're going to find your blood sugars are roller coastering. Would COVID or a loss of a family member? Oh yeah. A lot of emotional pain there. Someone that jobs hours increased a lot, or maybe a demanding job that there was a lot of pressure, would that affect their insulin resistance? It would. So these are all things. So if you have diabetes and any of these knife dulling factors, does it make sense that they may be contributing to insulin resistance? Okay, so the last one is how much work are you asking your knife to do? So this has to do with how much are you putting in glucose into the bloodstream at one sitting. So how much carb without the fiber, whether it's sugar, and last week we talked about starch without the fiber, even that's going to be more work at one sitting. And if you've got the box knife, it's not going to be able to keep up. And the paring knife is probably not going to be able to keep up. But if you space things out, that's why meal spacing is really important to find out what works for you. Diane, she tested it out. It may be different for you, and you may find certain foods, but this is why not avoiding sitting down and eating just carb. Okay, and you'll notice the snacks that we are recommending today bring in protein or a little bit of fat, but a lot of times we have a little bit of protein and fiber in there. And that is going to slow down the release of any kind of carb. Carb's not bad into the bloodstream, so that if you have some insulin resistance going on, and if you have a smaller knife, that you're going to be able to keep up with the work. Now, 4 hours is really good between meals. Think about it, because then if you've got fiber at these meals and protein, so they're mixed, then the glucose that is released into the bloodstream, the insulin that the pancreas is making, can keep up with that, because it's a slow release with that fiber and that protein in their slow release. So your body's working hard, but it can keep up with it without you going too high. And then you work on it, and then you bring it down, not drop it down, but you bring it down and get hungry at 4 hours. Usually a little before 4 hours, you'll start to get hungry. And that's your signal that within 30 minutes to most an hour, you need to be eating something. That's the way our bodies were made. That hunger signal is your signal to think about in the next 30 minutes to hour to be getting food in your body. Things will taste great, because when you're hungry, things taste good, better. Then you give it a meal, not a feast, and you'll be able to keep up with it. And then you give it time. You don't give a snack a half an hour later and some sugar a little bit. No. That's going to interrupt this nice cycle. Okay, so that's a little bit about how to space things out. So thinking about the action steps there, here's some ideas here. Adding in additional vegetable. Vegetables have fiber. They don't have much carbs, so they're going to be great for keeping those blood sugars from rising too quickly. Plan and purchase ingredients to make a mini meal if in a hurry. Have things on hand. We got some great snacks for a share tonight. Try out a recipe. Plan one meal that's a baby step closer to the Harvard meal plate. That's that plate with the 4 kind of quarters-ish to it. So have foods ready to go for a mini kind of meal at work. Okay, these things happen. Our days don't go as planned. And use inspiration from a meal or from class to pivot one meal that you make to make it more delicious and bring you the health that you want. So your meals don't have to be all chucked out the window. You can pivot many of your meals that you're making using the information you're learning tonight. Leaving 2 hours between meals and snacks for one day, or 4 hours between meals. Try it out like Diane did. Just do a test run. Make observations. So, okay. So time to get cooking. So excited. Tonight we got some fun things that are really great to have in your cupboard and can expand to other things. So let's get back here, sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera. Any questions there? Well, I'm getting set up here. Let's see.
All we see is a guy on there.
Yes, he's attentively taking notes there virtually. So,
People.
yes. So you know what? Microsoft Teams is a funny thing, and how it decides to put people on the screen. So I never have figured it out. So, oh, here we go. We have this over here. Oh, recording error. That's why I have 2 things recording at all times. So, so just a review here real quick too. So I've got my knives here, just again, reviewing. So, controlling your blood sugars is really simple when we think about it as how big is your knife? So how much insulin, just volume wise, are you able to keep up with? When you're born with a certain amount. And then when you're diagnosed with diabetes, that is less, usually half. And when you've had diabetes for a while, it's less. But you still, with meal planning, you can actually do a lot. and keep your meds down or even no meds. But when we get down to this level, it's pretty tricky. So that's usually where we're going to need the help of meds or possibly insulin. So how sharp your knife is, okay, that's going to influence. If we've got a sharp paring knife, then we can probably do a lot. But if we've got a dull big knife resistance, their insulin resistance, then we're probably going to need some help even with a big knife. And then lastly, how much work are we giving it at one sitting? If we're spacing it out, giving it breaks, not giving it too much at one sitting, that's a nice balance. It really is. So play around and figure out for yourself. Okay.
Teresa,
So,
Teresa,
yeah. Yes.
I have a question. Last week we talked about soluble and insoluble fiber, and you've mentioned fiber tonight several times. You know, and they come from some of them come from different sources. Is there one fiber or the other that is more important?
Okay, great question there, Diane. So, okay, all fiber has its importance. We are talking about blood sugar, so I realize that that's on your mind.
Right.
That's where soluble fiber definitely would be my kind of vote.
Okay.
Again, both are important, but soluble in the oatmeal. That is why, there's a big push for oatmeal. So, okay, so it helps with your arteries too. So beans also, and tonight sweet potatoes are great for soluble and for insulin resistance. So they have they help your insulin work better. It's amazing stuff. There's complexity built into some of these simple principles, but so that's why sometimes psyllium sometimes helps a little bit. So Metamucil. So those kind of things, those are higher in soluble fiber. So,
okay.
But you always want, you want to look at making sure your meals have that whole grain, that mother intact fiber, because we want both. We do find that the working benefits of both fiber tend to work synergistically together. So that's why kind of, if somebody were to try and get around by just relying on powder, it probably wouldn't work, really well. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tricia,
Awesome. Love the questions. Keep them coming.
Tricia, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, all we have is you from the shoulders down on the line.
Okay. Yes.
There you
Yes.
are.
So I'm going to be making here. So you'll be able to see here, Ron. So
Okay.
that's why.
You'll be
So
making
yes.
what?
So
Here?
it'll make sense.
Okay.
So, okay, we're going to get going. We're going to make quinoa. So quinoa, it is pronounced quinoa, but like I pronounce 99% of words wrong, but this is how you say quinoa. It's taken me forever. So quinoa is actually a seed. It's a whole grain, but it's technically a seed. And it's super high in protein, like 8 grams a serving of protein, and fiber is like 5 grams of fiber. So, and it's very easy to make. We're going to make it tonight for our quinoa burgers. So I'm going to get the boiling water going.
That on this too.
Yeah, always a time. Yes, that's on. So you can put those in any time. So quinoa actually came from kind of the Aztecian culture, and it's been grown in like really the Andes where it's really hard to grow stuff. And the cultures there actually have grown it and saved it for the warriors because they found that it was kind of almost a complete food for the warriors. It really helped them keep strong so they could fight and protect their villages. So it's really kind of interesting. There's different quinoa. There's white, there's red, there's, the white tends to be the most neutral flavor. The others have a little more nutty, a little more flavor to them. They're a little harder to find. You'll find them in the health food stores, but I usually just get the white. So you need to rinse it under cold water because it has a layer, a naturally Mother Nature, nothing dangerous, but it's called saponin, and it's kind of soapy. If you have a really good keen flavor sense, we just rinse it off. It's just good for grains to rinse off. So the ratio is 2-to-1. So I'm going to make, I have a cup of water and a half a cup of rinsed quinoa to make the quinoa for the quinoa burgers there. So it's already boiling. So I'm going to add that in and just cook it for 10 minutes. That's all. That's the cool thing about quinoa. So I make quinoa a lot because my kids like white rice, and white rice is not a whole grain. So I have a rice cooker that for the kids, I'll make the white rice. And for me, I'll just real quickly on the stove make quinoa. And then I'll usually make it and just use it throughout the week. So it can be thrown in salads, like cold salads. It can be, you can just add it to anything. It's just really great, and it adds a lot of nutrition and fiber to it. So we're gonna have that, and it's gonna add a lot of nutrient density, and it's gonna help hold together our burgers. So we're gonna make that. Let's go ahead with the sweet potatoes while that's cooking there. So, oops. Yeah, that's what happens. This stove is like super fast, like rocket fast. So there we go. Okay, so sweet potato. I love introducing you to sweet potato because sweet potatoes are very different than russet potatoes. I'm not, no disrespect for russet potatoes, but sweet potatoes have fiber all throughout. You know, we think of the russet potatoes like the skin, you know, your mom probably said, you need to eat the skin. Come on, the good stuff's in the skin. So now here with the sweet potato, I'm fine without the skin. Okay, yes, the skin has a lot of good stuff. So if you're eating it, fine, I'm fine with that. But the fiber is all throughout. So, and look at the color of it. The color of it tells me it has anthocyanins in there, which is a great antioxidant. The other thing is it has this component that helps with insulin resistance. So what we find is people have much better blood sugar control for several hours after eating sweet potatoes. Now, don't sit down there and eat a whole bowl plain of sweet potatoes, but I'm just saying they really have a magical property. So much closer to like beans than what we think of potatoes having. So now I peeled this, and this is okay, let's make sure we're going back and forth here. So I want to show you how to cut this real quick. And I know you're probably like, well, Teresa, I know how to cut. Can you watch that? What you need to do is just go here and then go down. So that it's boiling, but never boiling. Okay, so usually you want to make this manageable. So I'm going to cut probably like that much because I don't want anybody to cut off a finger. So you could cut like this, but you know, we've got we're moving here. It's not really flat. The flat edge is here. So usually what I do is use it like this. Now I've got this flat. So now I can stack, and now I can make my even cube. It's kind of even, just as close as possible. So don't get too carried away to show off and get like 4 stacked stories there, but you know, potatoes are dense, so you got to be careful there. So we're just going to, and here I'm not even going to do that. So we're just going to chop these down to small cubes. Why am I doing smaller cubes rather than bigger ones? They cook a lot faster, yes. And they're easier to use in things, because the other reason I love introducing you to these is they are a bulk vegetable. You can make them on Sunday and then use them all throughout the week. Now they will collect moisture, so you need to like revive them by, you know, cooking them a little bit, like, you know, just toasting them a little bit to get off the moisture. But you can throw them in wraps, you can throw them in anything, you know, omelets and sandwiches and bowls, and, you know, and then we're using them as a snack tonight. So they're just so versatile. You can sprinkle them on top of a, you know, baboli pizza with spinach and tomato paste and stuff like that. So, okay, so we've got our potato here. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to put it out. Yeah, we've got a finished bunch here that Tanya got here. So if you can see, this is how it shrunk down. And so this is, because when we roast, it's going to take off some of the moisture. So now I want to show you a little bit about roasting real quick, but we don't want to crowd it much more than this. Okay, maybe a little bit like that, but I don't want to just like cover it with orange, because it will have to then steam before it starts to caramelize and go into roasting. Okay, so because you have to get off that moisture before you get to a true caramelization. Now, the great thing, we do have carb starch in here with the fiber, and so when we go roasting, we will get caramelization. Now, when we roast broccoli and Brussels sprouts, we don't have much carb, so we don't get that. It goes through what we call a caramelization stage. It starts at 330 degrees, but there's not much carb for it to do, so it keeps going. And then when we move on past caramelization, we also get these brown, and the brown is aromatic. And that's what we like on the Brussels sprouts and on the broccoli, right? When you roast them, you want the dark brown. So we get a little bit here, but also we're getting some sweet. So, but notice how these are smaller than this. I packed two pans here. I made 2 pans and put them on here. So we were going to taste these in a second. So, but yeah, parchment, spread it out, put it in there. You can do it in air fryers. How many of you have air fryers? So these are great for air fryers. I do find air fryers have like a hot spot, like they're just like an oven. There's like a spot that really cooks quick. You got to figure it out and just kind of rotate them. So we put these in the oven 15 to 20 minutes and then flip them. Now you don't have to sit there and individually flip them. Just take the spatula and just kind of move them around a little bit and then do them another 15 to 20 minutes. But make sure if you kind of squeeze, you'll see you kind of get a little squeezing out of them. So then you've got it done. So you roast it. Yes. Did you have a question, Bonnie?
No oil or any seasoning on them?
No, you could do a little dash of salt. Okay. Salt is not evil. I just want you to monitor it. So I just talked about sodium. You can try other seasonings like cinnamon and things. Universally, most people are going to like a light sprinkling of salt. I'm just going to say most people are, but you're welcome to experiment with other things. I don't usually do oils. I do oil in some of my roasting. Here, taste wise, I have done comparing tests. I've never found a taste difference. Now, why would I add a little bit, maybe half a tablespoon, 1 teaspoon of oil? Because in here there's vitamin A. You can see it. It's pretty. It's the orange, right? So vitamin A, D, E, K are what we call fat soluble vitamins. They are fat soluble. In other words, to be carried in the bloodstream and absorbed, they like fat. So they're going to be absorbed a lot better with a teeny bit of fat. So sometimes I usually roast my veggies with just a little. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take the oil and just put up my fingers and then I'll just go through like that. So it's not like 2 tablespoons. It's not like, but that will help your absorption. It doesn't seem to, I've done taste tests several times. I don't pick up with my taste buds a difference in flavoring. So great question there. What we will do today is we're going to take this, because this is a carb, and I just told you with fiber that we want kind of 2 groups, food groups for a snack or meal at least. So you're going to make a dip for them. So here, I've got the dip for us to taste here. So it's really simple. It's, let me grab a refrigerator to show you. It's non-fat Greek yogurt. This is a very versatile ingredient to have, plain Greek non-fat yogurt. We're going to use this with garlic powder and garlic, onion powder, and some Dijon. So just a little bit of Dijon, and it will take off. For the most part, most people will tell me they don't catch that kind of sour that you have in the yogurt if you just take it right away, that the Dijon really helps kind of disappear that. So we're just going to mix that up. So now this is a protein, so dipping these in there is a great combination. It's a great snack to have. It's going to hold you over too. I promise you. If you have now, a 5-inch potato is like 2 servings. Okay, so keep in mind that that's the serving size we're talking about. So this is going to be more like I'm trying to think. Did we do that? We added a few more. That's going to be close to 2 servings. Not maybe quite. I think it's a little less than 2 servings there on the baking pan half. So that's all there is. So you can make this and you can use it for dips for other things. You could use it today. We're making the quinoa burgers. So it's very versatile, but you do want to make sure you're not sitting down and just eating a bunch of, the sweet potatoes, because your blood sugar, it probably is going to have an effect on it. Maybe not. We're all different. We are all different. And I think probably in the next 10 years, we're going to go into a year or a phase of personalization. So with our blood sugars and things like that. So, okay. So the quinoa burgers. So, you know what? You reminded me. Let's stand up. Ernie, let's stand up. Ernie's been standing up. Yes. So let's stand up. So we got to stand up. So if you want to, you can do some window wiping, washing, window wipers. So yeah, just go ahead, do some punches. Stretch if you need to. And go ahead and sit down. So we did that last week, Tanya, because every 30 minutes we've talked.
He was on it. He's like,
I know they've been reminding. I was looking, the first time you did it, it was like 10 after. I was like, okay, good reminder, Ernie there. So thank you. Please do that anytime you want to. Okay, so we've got the quinoa. So I'm gonna get a bowl out. Yeah, but Gusto talks to me when I put something on it and it's not on. So, okay, this normally would be kind of cooled off, but we're going to put that in there. And then I'm going to add my pinto beans. Let's see, can you hand me that tray? There's a whole tray. Thank you, Tanya. So, now you can take the pinto beans. Here's no added salt pinto beans. Pinto means paint. They're normally pinto beans when they're raw, they're like colored, like swirl colored. So they end up being like this pink, all one color when they're soaked, but actually when they're raw, they're actually a pretty swirl color. So I am going to just mash this with the masher here. Oh, you know what? I need to make my egg. So I am going to add my flaxseed. So there's the flaxseed. I ground it up. Okay, the flaxseed is just tiny little bird seeds, and I ground it up. You do need to either buy ground up. I prefer if you grind it up because the oil in it will go. And you need to at least put it in the freezer. I don't care if the bag says it's supposed to be good till whenever. Put it in the freezer if you're buying ground flaxseed. So this makes a mock egg. It's not quite as strong as a true egg for binding, but it's strong enough for the quinoa burgers. So you're welcome to use one egg instead, but I just want you to know this will work and it's fine. And then the whole thing you can leave out on the counter because you don't have any animal product in it. So
how much is it?
1 tablespoon of flaxseed and 6 tablespoons of water. So
Trace,
yeah.
I'm sorry, there's some kind of feedback with the Apple people.
Oh, okay. Let me just go ahead and double. No, thank you. There we go. So hopefully. So, okay. So seasonings for the quinoa burger. We're going to go a little crazy here. We've got chili powder. We've got onion powder. We've got paprika. Now, the store didn't have my favorite one, which is the smoked paprika. They had Spanish. Now, you can get regular paprika, but if you've ever smelled paprika, smoked, and Spanish, you will never go back to regular paprika. Okay, they're much better. So to do smoked or Spanish. So a little garlic in here and cumin. So now I gave you a handout with spices. You're going to taste today the quinoa burgers. I want you to take note of them, how they taste, and go, okay, that's enough seasoning, or nope, I got to double this. Okay, it's a baseline for you. And I gave you some other seasonings in case you want to replace these seasonings with a more different, like North Africa or Mediterranean, or, I've got all different ones on there to start experimenting that don't have salt added to them. So let me go ahead and quickly mash this. You just you can put it in the blender, but you want some whole pieces. Can you grab in the refrigerator the plate so I can show them what they look like fully done? Yeah. So you can just see it's not that hard, and it's always nice to get a little workout. So there we go. This is a snack size. Okay, these are 3-inch. You're getting tiny taste size ones tonight, so we're heating them up. But you can see, hopefully at home, you can see that there's little pieces of the bean. There's no reason to like totally make this into refried beans kind of consistency. You don't need to. So, but that's what they look like. So I'm just going to combine this and the spices then. A little cornstarch. The cornstarch is really great for absorbing moisture. It can absorb like 10 times its weight or something. So, so cornstarch is in there. We use cornstarch a lot of times with tofu. So garlic, I just use jar garlic. So it's fine to use. I actually have been having jar garlic and fresh. Sometimes I'll just, it's like I want to just spit it out really quick. So I'll use this. And sometimes it's like I want to use the fresh. So whatever works for you. So we're just going to mix that together. And then our egg. And the flax is going to add great fiber in there. And I've never had a problem with making the ball, you know, the burgers stick together or anything like that. You can see right now, it's just pretty easy to work with here. So I'll just, you know, just make you guys see okay at home there? So there we go. There's like a 3-inch burger. Okay. So, and you know what, this makes quite a few. I think I say it makes like, what, like 8, 6. It makes more than that. So, you know, about a 1/2 inch thick, so 3 inches. So that with, you know, you can add, you know, tomato, lettuce on it, onion, mushrooms, and then, you know, try and be creative and not go right to ketchup. Okay. So, you know, there's a lot of other things when you start to say, okay, I'm going to try and be creative here. A little Dijon. Again, you could use the dip that we're using tonight. If you want to try that, you guys here, you're welcome to try that with that if you want to. So, so the quinoa burgers, you know, they do take a little time to make them, but they can be frozen. You can whip them out. You can make them for dinner and have them as a dinner meal. But this is, I mean, think about this: pinto beans, spices, flaxseed, quinoa. You know, just find the right seasoning, and this is golden. It's made for you, and you have a meal already done. So, baking it. Oh, thank you. And also make a note on your recipe, cross off the olive oil. That was if you pan fry it. It does beautiful baking. Okay, tonight I have not had a problem with it falling apart, you know, crumbling, anything like that. So baking, why not? I mean, it does take a little time to bake it, but you can see I made 2 batches for you guys tonight. So you'll see we have a gazillion mini taster burgers and then these 4. So that's how many I made with 2 batches. Okay, so that makes a lot. So, and they freeze really well. Yes. Sure. Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I haven't done it. So, but okay, you tell, I mean, you can, if you want to take one of these and just feel the texture of it, this is baked. So, and if you want to feel the texture of the ones there, so you're welcome to, but let me know if you do, but it should work. So it doesn't fall apart. I've tried many kind of vegetarian burgers, homemade, and a lot of them, they do fall apart. So, so this one I haven't had any problem with. So what you really want to concentrate on is the seasoning. So the last thing, we're at the top of the hour, but we gotta hold out for some great snacks. So we've got some great snacks. Tanya's helping here. So, yes, we've got that. We're gonna taste those. So we've got the burgers that are all hot and ready to go. Tanya's been working on. Okay. So you guys, virtually, look at this. This is a sea of chocolate and blueberries. And this is the rice cakes. Let's see, where's the wrapper? Here it is. So I just used these rice cakes. You can get these at Hy-Vee and Target usually. I have a little trouble at Walmart. Sometimes they're there. But one rice cake with 1 tablespoon of peanut butter and 2 tablespoons of blueberries. You can use frozen, and then just a little bit, about this much of chocolate chopped up, really finely and sprinkled over. So just a little bit, enough to give it that good chocolate flavor. So I just used like either a Baker's or a Ghirardelli dark chocolate. So that's wonderful. The other one we have over here, can you grab the bananas? So another one we have, I know bananas, a lot of people are like, I'm not supposed to eat that when I have diabetes. Well, everybody is different. So you do need to pay attention if maybe you do, have blood sugars that go super high with bananas. But this has peanut butter and non-fat Greek yogurt mixed. So it's, I think, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and 1 tablespoon of non-fat Greek yogurt. That makes it easier to stick to the banana. And it's still sweet and peanut buttery. So 3 of these is 1 serving. Okay, so a 6-inch banana is 2 servings. So you could put them in the freezer, and we just thawed them like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So, I don't like them super rock hard, ice hard. So we're thawing them just a tad. So you can see if that's possibly. And then the other snack I have in the refrigerator is, and this one, you're going to make people jealous. So look at this cute little jar. So this is just a mason jar with a little bit of hummus, and you can put any, celery, carrot, red pepper sticks in there. And you can do this for like 4 or 5 days. You can just put them in a row in the refrigerator and just grab and go. And keep in mind, now you can buy these lids. These lids fit a regular mason jar, and they fit these smaller ones. So glass jars, I know this one kind of clouded over with the moisture, but glass jars are beautiful for like storing, making things look beautiful, but they can be very expensive. Mason jars aren't. They're great to just store things in. So if you want some pretty containers, I know you can't drop them, but they are inexpensive, and I like to get the plastic lids on there. It's just easier to handle there. So you have in your binder some other recipes for snacks too. The grapes that are toothpick and rolled in a little non-fat Greek yogurt with almonds. And then you got the wasa with the salmon. And you had a cute idea. What was your idea? You said you've done before.
Oh, for the grapes?
Yeah.
I actually just take a little bit of lemon juice, and you toothpick a grape, you roll it in the lemon juice, and then take fat-free gelatin, and you just roll it in there, and it makes like candy grapes. You put them in the freezer for like an hour.
You would want a protein with that too. So you don't have to combine it with a food, but that's a cute little idea there. That sounded like fun. So, but
I recommend the green apple.
green apple. She likes the green apple jello. So, but hopefully you find some ideas here from some snacks or mini meals, some things to have on hand. It's all about like when you open the refrigerator and you're like, I want something right now, that you have something ready, and that you have something that like, wow, that's really good. That's satisfying me. It's not giving me a sugar rush and a drop. So it's going to hold me over. So awesome. So does everybody have an action plan? Did you take a second to figure out what you're doing for the next week? So those here, go ahead and leave one here. I like to see what people are kind of aiming for. You can write your own and take one with you or take a picture of it. So, but I want to, as much as I can, just encourage you on this journey and the learning. So thank you. Next week again, those that are at home, please remember to have just a little something to eat with us, because we're going to talk about eating. So, and do an eating exercise, and we'll have the triple powered smoky tortillas and the mouth watering frittata for recipes next week. So thank you so much. Email me if you got questions.